UFC 294 took place a couple days ago, and in the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev got the unanimous decision over Kamaru Usman. And because of that, he's now ranked number 9 in the middleweight division. And Dana has still promised a title shot to him despite being ranked number 9. Now that is the third, if he is granted a title shot, that's the third lowest ranking UFC fighter to get a title shot. And he may have not even won the fight. Weasel did a breakdown video of it. And in the third round, which is what the fight comes down to, because obviously Khamzat won the first round dominantly, getting him a 10-8. Usman came back in the second, winning that 10-9. In the third round, that's what it comes down to. And Weasel gave it to Chimaev based off of a jab that supposedly wobbled Usman. MMA Guru did a breakdown of Weasel's breakdown of the fight, pointing out some really weird, inconsistent things of Weasel's scoring system, especially on the heavy and medium strikes. And it was just weird. It was weird to see Weasel. I mean, we know MMA Guru and Weasel kind of have a little beef going based off of how Weasel scored the Makachev versus Volkanovski fight. But this one obviously was not as big of a deal, but because it was a much closer, I think it was a closer fight than Makachev and Volkanovski. But the third round, Weasel gave it to Chimaev based off of a jab that supposedly wobbled Usman, but it just didn't. It just straight up didn't wobble him. I'll post MMA Guru's link to the video below so you can watch his breakdown of it. But I think most people think that fight was a draw. That's what I think. And if Chimaev gets a title shot over Dricus du Plessis based off of a draw against Kamaru Usman, who's not a middleweight, got off the couch on, 10 days notice from welterweight to fight Chimaev. I mean, Usman's on a 2-fight losing streak in a different division, and beating him gets you a title shot over beating Robert Whittaker, Derek Brunson, Darren Till, Brad Tavares. I mean, Dricus du Plessis is so much more deserving of a title shot. If Chimaev is granted a title shot over Dricus, that would be the most egregious things in terms of fight making the UFC has ever done. They just don't. It's almost as if they don't even care. They don't care about the rankings or who's. Well, they never really have, to be honest. But I think it's definitely getting worse in terms of they only value the name of the fighter rather than the rank and skill of the fighter. And I think that's really evident, and you can really see that in terms of who they're signing to the UFC. They're signing guys that just aren't ready for the UFC. They don't have the skill to really make it into the sport. Yet they're signing them anyway based upon the market value they can attract to the UFC. And Sean Strickland's talking about this, right? He even said Khamzat absolutely doesn't deserve a title shot, but he'll sell more pay-per-views than Dricus, so he doesn't care. It's just crazy. It's crazy that beating Robert Whittaker the way Dricus did it, winning the first round clearly, and then dominating the second round, finishing Robert Whittaker by TKO. Nobody does that to Robert Whittaker. No one does that. The only person to ever do that to Whittaker was Adesanya in the first fight, and that was a different Robert Whittaker. We saw in the rematch with Adesanya, Whittaker arguably won that fight. And Dricus smoked that version of Rob in the second round. Didn't really get damaged. Got hit with some jabs. But, I mean, dominated that fight. He's on a amazing win streak right now. 6-fight win streak? Something like that? I think even more. That's his UFC wins. He's on a 6-fight UFC win streak. He's undefeated in the UFC. This doesn't make any sense. The only thing that I can think of is that Dricus would rather fight Adesanya than get a title shot versus Sean Strickland. That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense as to why Dricus isn't really pushing as much for his title shot as he should be. He's not really being that vocal about it. I know MMA Guru is going to have him interview him on his channel, but he's gotta take a couple notes from Chael Sonnen and start making a name for himself, or he's gonna get passed over real quick in this business. So he's really got to start pressing his voice. He's got to make his voice heard if he wants that title shot. And he may not. He may want to fight Adesanya so bad, which I think I will pick him to win against Adesanya. I think his grappling is and his strength is gonna be too much for Adesanya. If he wants to wait for Adesanya though, because Adesanya said he's gonna be out for a while. He's taking a break from the UFC for who knows how long. I just don't see Dricus waiting for Adesanya. So it just doesn't make any sense why he's not calling for a shot. I hope it works out for him. But moving on to Islam's legacy. Islam very well could become the lightweight GOAT. MMA Guru just made a good video about comparing Islam's skill to Khabib's skill, especially their striking. I think most people would say Khabib's grappling is better, but not by that big of a margin. But I think most people would say Khabib's grappling is better. But Islam's striking compared to Khabib's, far better. Islam's a far better striker than Khabib ever was. And that's obviously made very clear in Islam's TKO victory over Volkanovski. No one lands a head kick like that on Volkanovski. I mean, Holloway did a couple, twice, I think. But, I mean, Yair Rodriguez couldn't even do that. And Yair Rodriguez has some of the best kicks ever. Although Volk was expecting kicks in that fight more from Yair than Islam, but to catch Volk like that, the way he did, and finish Volk like that, that's insane. That's saying something. And submitting Olivera the way he did, beating Olivera like that, amazing. We thought Olivera was unbeatable at that point. But Islam dominates Oliver in that fight. It really wasn't close at all, as much as I wanted Oliveira to win. And although he had a very close fight with Volk in their first fight, I think Islam won that. Based on the current scoring criteria, I think you have to give that to Islam. And there were a lot of factors that made that fight as close as it was favoring Volk, like the rehydration time for Islam, the amount of time Volk had to bulk up to lightweight, That's why their first fight and second fight were so different. And now Islam's looking to probably face Justin Gaethje. And we saw how Gaethje's fight against Khabib went. Now, although Gaethje has gotten better, because that was nearly 3 years ago at that point, by this point, I definitely think Islam should be the favorite in that fight against Gaethje. And if he can beat him, and then beat probably Olivera in a rematch, that's who he'll probably face after Gaethje, because Olivera is going to need, most likely he'll need another win, since he dropped out of this fight, the UFC 294 fight with Islam. So Olivera will probably have to face Gamrot, I would say, which I think Olivera would absolutely smoke Gamrot. Gamrot's too fluky, although Gamrot might use his telekinesis like he did against Khabib and just somehow win for no good reason. But yeah, I think Olivera definitely wins that fight. Gets himself another title shot. And if Islam can get through Gaethje and Olivera again, he'll probably need one more title defense. Because what he'll have, he took it from Olivera, and then defend against Volk in the rematch. Well, hopefully he'll fight Gaethje next. That'll be 3. And then if he gets Olivera in the rematch, or someone else, maybe like Arman Saryukin, he might earn his title shot by that point. That's 4 title defenses in the lightweight division, and that makes him the GOAT. That makes him the GOAT of the lightweight division, which would really be amazing to see. Well, if you're a Dagestani fan, it'd be amazing to see. Although Islam's a fun fighter. He's one of the most fun Dagestanis because of his striking. His striking is really, really good. We saw that obviously in his last fight and the first fight with Volk. He put on some really good striking against Volk. Volk even said I underestimated his striking ability. So Islam very well could become the lightweight GOAT. The only problem with this is that he has to beat Gaethje, which I think he will. And then he probably will have to rematch Olivera. And that's where things get a little iffy, because Olivera looked great in his fight against Beneil Dariush. Although people are kind of undermining Dariush's skills because, I mean, Dariush just hasn't fought that high level. The highest level opponent he's really fought was Gamrot. And Gamrot, it's just fluky. It's Gamrot. I mean, I'm not trying to undercut Gamrot. He has amazing wrestling, but he's had a lot of flukes, to say the least, in his career. But yeah, Olivera looked great against Dariush. He was winning from bottom position, controlling and limiting everything that Dariush was throwing off of his, while Charles was on his back. Landing good elbows, got up from the position, and just went to town on Dariush. Got him out of there in 1 round. Dominantly. And although he was very emotional after the fight, I think that it was a good emotion. It was like, okay, it was a realization that I'm back. That wasn't me in my fight against Islam, but now I'm back against Dariush, and I just proved that. I think that's why he was so emotional in that moment. And I think he's realized that, okay, I can get my belt back. I think he truly believes that he can get his belt back. And with a win over Gamrot, which I think Olivera will smoke Gamrot. With a win over him, that'll get him his next title shot. And although the first fight was obviously dominant for Islam. I think the rematch with Olivera is going to be much closer, much more competitive. I think Olivera is going to be more dialed in, more focused. Olivera admitted that the trash talk that Islam and his team did to Olivera, he admitted that it got to him. It really affected him. So I think he's going to be more prepared for the mental side of things this time. I think he really could pull a win off of the most important win of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see the future of the lightweight division. See if Islam can become the GOAT or if Olivera can reclaim that status, because I think right now what it looks like is going to happen is you have Khabib as number 1. You have to put Khabib as the lightweight GOAT. And Islam's up there with him, and I think with another title defense, he'll equal Khabib. But Olivera might bring all that to a close. So we'll see. All right, that's it. See ya.